This is a case that really does defy belief. A 12-year-old rapes a 9-year-old after watching hardcore pornography. It's not unique either. Judith Reisman is an expert in sexuality and human behavior. She joins us now from Washington. Always such a pleasure to have you on the show. I wish the subject was not as grotesque as this, but this is not the only time we've heard about such an incident.
Oh, gracious, no, I'm afraid not. As a matter of fact, in Brazil, the judge in Brazil just ruled that a man, well, of course, this was a man who raped a 12-year-old girl, and several of them, just ruled that these children were not really being raped per se because they had been raped earlier and were now acting as prostitutes. And so the whole notion of childhood is shifting radically. Yeah. And it's shifting radically along with the development of internet pornography, I'm afraid, yeah. Mm.
Now, whenever we talk about this subject, there will be people who say you're being prudish and there's nothing wrong with porn. And, you know, I saw, I think when I was about 15, on the subway system in London, so for some reason, there was a copy of a magazine called Health and Efficiency, which was a naturist magazine, and it was overweight English people with bad teeth throwing beach balls to each other naked. You know, I wasn't aroused. I'm being very open here. I think I saw a pornographic magazine. I was at university when I was about 20. This is the dark ages today. There is hardcore, explicit porn available so quickly, free of charge, all over the internet.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a huge problem. Look, Facebook was just exposed a few weeks ago on WorldNet Daily, a conservative news magazine for child pornography on Facebook. And Facebook so far hasn't done much about it. When you look at the data on the ages of children now being molested, NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, identify now roughly 6%, depending on how you look at it, whose data you're looking at there, but 6 to 10% of your children are infants and toddlers who are now being victimized by teenagers or adults. And another, 57% or 60% are children under 12. So we're dropping the ages of our victims radically. And as youngsters are exposed to the internet pornography in ways it was bad enough when we had the magazines, the hard magazines. But as they're getting exposed, you're talking about brain changes. There's no question about that. We're laying down neurochemical pathways in that brain of that youngster, that plastic brain. And that youngster will seek out someone to experiment with very often. And they're not going to go knock on the door and say, Mrs. Jones, I just saw something very exciting. Can I try that on you? So they do what kids do. They'll go to younger children, and they will experiment on those younger children. That is very frightening. It should frighten an awful lot of parents. Pornography is off the charts now. Yeah.
Now, this is very important because we know that even for adults, a married couple, it produces pornography, mass pornography. We're not talking here about a picture that is occasionally seen. We're talking about addictions and obsessions. Ridiculous expectations that a woman can never fulfill. Marriages are damaged by this. But what you're saying is a child's brain is developing. So if a child does see hardcore porn, and we'll discuss how that could happen, that child, unless there is intervention, can be influenced negatively for the rest of his or her life.
Well, Michael, it's any pornography. See, we've become so desensitized that we think it requires, quote, hard. No. A child who sees penetration of any kind, who sees any kind of stimuli like that, if the child's brain is not, and we know the brain data are very clear, until roughly age 21 to 25, it's supposed to be really 25, that the frontal cortex, that judgmental ability that we have to discern, to make decisions, to have sober judgment, does not really develop until roughly age 21 to 25. So when children are stimulated early on, the plasticity of that brain means there's an immediate imprint. We are talking about brain damage. And the addiction science now, the American Society for Addiction Medicine has come out recently with a 4-year study saying absolutely you are looking at what we now call natural addictions, what we understood before to be endogenously produced drugs. and a natural addiction process that's starting to take place. And it's taking place with children as they're being exposed at what? Age 9, 10, 11. They're on the internet pornography. So, Michael, we are dealing with massive social change wherever this material shows up.
But Judith, how do they, and I know people will be asking this question, how do they see this? Now, we have full children. They have now their own laptops. They have had for some years. But they have a self-regulation mechanism. They know certain things are wrong. But at a certain age, they will do what they want to do. But at 11 and 12 years old, this means there can be no parental supervision, effectively. Well, you notice the little boy, that the 12-year-old who is really kind of off the hook. He's going to get quote-unquote treatment. Okay. That boy was given complete access, apparently, to pornography in his household. Well, that's telling you that the parents themselves had a problem, and the parents were allowing the child then to experience their problem. They became sufficiently desensitized, obviously, that they didn't even recognize that what they were looking at, as problematic as that probably was for their own marriage and their own ability to communicate, that was going to be a disaster for their son. So now, the son is a victim. I'm not saying he should be treated as a quote victim in the same way that he raped this little 9-year-old. But look, you go on the internet. We've got two little 7-year-olds that raped a toddler. We've got a whole broad spectrum of reports when you Google, that kind of thing, that are reporting on children and infants and toddlers who are being sexually assaulted and sometimes die from an assault from from a teenager, or not even a teenager, 12-year-old or 7-year-old even. So the children are out there experimenting. They're learning from adults, okay? And if what they see is in the rarefied atmosphere of a television, the excitement of that, large numbers who are not supervised appropriately by parents, whose parents have their own problems, will then act that out, and they will act out, a number of them will act out on younger. Look, they'll act out on sisters and brothers, and mommy and daddy are not going to report little Tommy who sexually assaulted his little sister or his little brother. Yep. So it's going to be the neighbor who will report that, not mom and dad, when it's happening to their own children within their own household. Yeah. Well, we still pretend it's not a problem. As ever, it's wonderful to have you on the show. The subject is depressing as hell, but hearing your analysis is so very helpful. Thank you very much. No, let me give you something good. Okay, very quickly. You've got 5 seconds. The plasticity of the brain has been shown that we can actually retool and rewire that brain. So don't give up. Just get in touch and read the material. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.